Arizona's 2nd congressional district can be a candidate's nightmare. It's split equally among Democrats, Republicans, and independents. That means making mistakes and straying too far from the middle can quickly turn the tides against any candidate. Democrat incumbent Ron Barber and Republican challenger Martha McSally know exactly what they're up against in this district where the margin of victory is razor thin. Both squared off in 2012, and it took a week before the race was called. Barber won by just 2,400 votes. Voters have their work cut out for them. Both candidates come from similar backgrounds, both are highly critical of what's going on in Washington, and both want better security at the border. Where their split is on issues like minimum wage and gun control. McSally believes raising the minimum wage will cost jobs. Barber feels more money in workers' pockets will give the economy a boost. But it's the gun control debate that's stirring up the strongest emotions. It's a personal issue for Barber, who was shot in the same terrible incident that nearly killed then Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords. He was working as her aide at the time. McSally supports the National Rifle Association and agrees gun violence needs to be minimized. She's upset about how the issue has played out on the airwaves during the campaign, criticizing Barber in their first debate over an ad featuring a mother whose daughter was killed by an ex-boyfriend.
My daughter was just 19 when she told her boyfriend the relationship was over, and he got a gun and he shot her and my husband.
Barber denies responsibility for the ad, saying a third party put it out.
All right, folks, we're back with Michael Barone, senior political analyst for the Washington Examiner, resident fellow at the American Enterprise Institute, and of course polling expert. All right, we just talked about some Senate races. Overall, there's a Wall Street Journal poll out over the weekend, which is very consistent in that with voters who are likely voters, Republicans have a big advantage heading in, and with low-interest voters, they also measure this, the Democrats are favored by low-interest, unlikely to vote, so to speak, voters. Can they turn that around at all?
Well, I think it's going to be tough for Democrats to turn it around in the last 2 weeks. That's roughly consistent with what we've seen during this cycle. I mean, pollsters ask these questions in an attempt to gauge who will turn out for the election, which side will disproportionately come to the polls. The questions are suggestive. They don't give us definitive answers. Only really the election results do. But the indications are that Republicans are more motivated. And we've got, in what is increasingly a straight ticket voting country, we've got Democrats attempting to hold 7 Senate seats in states carried, and in 6 cases carried by a wide margin by Mitt Romney in 2012. That's when Barack Obama's approval rating was at 50%. Now it's at 42%. So it's uphill sledding for the Democrats.
Yeah, very much so. Let me ask you, you mentioned Mitt Romney, so let me ask you about Mitt Romney. I had Rick Santorum on the other day, and he said, I asked him, should Romney get in? He said, the more the merrier. But there was an ABC Washington Post poll late last week. 21% of Republicans had found, or Republican-leaning independents, said that they would like to see Romney as the Republican candidate in 2016, and that was double the next man named, and he was Jeb Bush with 11%. Now, the Romneys, Mrs. Romney especially, has just recently said we're done. But do you think there's a shot that he will run again?
Well, I think it's possible, but I think it's unlikely. I don't expect to see Mitt Romney run again a third time for the presidency. You've got a Republican field of candidates of at least a dozen potential who are mentioned, who are not well known to the nation's voters, at least beyond their own state. And none of them is accumulating a lot of votes. This isn't when you had, candidates like a Ronald Reagan or a Nelson Rockefeller who were widely known across the country, identified with certain ideas on the basis of their records, and had a national presence. So it's not surprising to me that Mitt Romney would run well. I think many Republicans and quite a few non-Republicans, looking back on the 2012 election, wish that the voters had made another choice, and that some of the things Romney said in that election, like saying that Russia was our number one geopolitical foe, things that were brushed aside by most in the mainstream media as irresponsible.
Yeah.
Not really true. That looks a lot better as a statement back today than it may have done in October 2012. And I think also there's a vestigial memory among many Republican voters of that excellent debate performance that Mitt Romney gave in the first televised debate in 2012. They feel that in many ways, not all ways, he was a good, competent nominee. His predictions and his prognostications and his views have been vindicated by events, and there's a warm feeling towards him that hasn't always existed towards other unsuccessful presidential nominees.
One more. I just want to hit you quickly with a political poll that shows that an overwhelming majority of Americans believe that America has spun off its axis and is "quote unquote" out of control. Let me ask you whether or not the Republicans take the Senate. I don't think Obama's going to stop in his final 2 years. So I think he's going to use his pen as often as he can. What will that do to the Democratic candidate, for the Democratic candidate, whoever it is?
His 10 and his 9 iron.
Yeah.
Look, the world's spinning out of control, and we see it in Russia invading Ukraine, Islamic State in Syria, Iraq. We see Ebola in West Africa and in North Texas. We've seen, this is not good for an incumbent president. It's not good for a president whose major argument is underpinned by the notion that government is competent, can aid people, and we need more of it in order to aid people more. That basic theme is being undercut by events.
So does that make it difficult, Michael? We only have 30 seconds. So does that make it difficult for Hillary or whomever to run with that philosophy? And how do they separate themselves?
I think the answer is yeah. It's a difficulty for Hillary Clinton and for any Democratic nominee.
Gotcha. Michael, great to talk to you. Thanks for staying for 2 segments. We'll speak to you again, my friend.
Okie doke. Thank you, sir.
Michael Barone, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said, nobody knows. I mean, if you named a congressional district off the top of your head, he could probably come up with, who's running, who the opponent is, and what the latest polls are, and why, most importantly. All right, folks, we're coming back with registered nurse and founder of Mid-Level U, Erin Tolbert. Don't go away.